Hello, friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. Friends, I am coming out. Well, if you've seen my YouTube channel, if you've seen my stories on Facebook, if you've seen what's behind me, it's not much of a coming out, but I am coming out of the closet as a tarot reader and a reader of other card systems. And I'm also doing my very first VR, video response, to Kasia at Tarot Map and Patrick at The Living Wheel. This is a response to a video about formative decks. And friends, if you know anything about tarot, you have seen these backs. They're probably one of the most well-known card deck backs probably in existence, especially for tarot. So friends, if you want to find out about my tarot journey, which decks have been formative for me, which have expanded me and developed me as a reader of cards in tarot and other divinatory systems like oracle decks and Lenormand. If you're interested, stay tuned. I'll be flipping the camera around so you can see the cards more clearly, and it's a rainy day, so the light is a little bit not enough. And so that's probably the best way to do it. So friends, if you're interested, if you're curious, if you want to hear about my tarot coming out story, stay tuned. I'll be right back. So friends, I've got all of my decks, well, not all of my decks, the decks that I have prepared laying off to the side. And they're all lined up, so I'll probably have to get up and come back several times. And they're laid out in not exactly a chronological order, because my chronology is not linear. It wraps back around upon itself several times. So I'm going to present them to you in a somewhat logical fashion. If you see no logic in it, I'm sorry, that's my logic. So let me start with the first deck I ever had. And this is not the exact deck, but rather a similar deck. Yeah, and you probably know these backs. This is the Rider-Waite-Smith plaid back deck. Comes in a yellow box. My first deck was probably in 1979, 1980. And this is definitely not that deck. I hope that deck exists at my mother's house somewhere. I haven't found it, but this is the deck that I got first because one of my friends in high school had a deck. And then another one of my friends in high school got a deck. So I wanted to learn the deck too, so I got it. First, I waited. I waited because I was told that I had to be gifted a deck. And I waited, and nobody gifted me a deck. So I got a deck at a shop in the Castro district in San Francisco. And I got it. I studied it. I really, really wanted to learn it, but I couldn't get over the meanings in the little white book at the time. Now, remember, this is 1979, 1980, and the meanings in the book, for example here, yeah, the Queen, oh, now this is a German deck. I got this from Germany. The Queen of Pentacles. The court cards were all describing people with red hair and brown hair and black hair and all very, very white sounding people. And my stepfather was black. And I didn't know how he and his family would fit into this system of cards. It didn't make sense to me. I couldn't see how all of the cards of, for example, I think the swords are supposed to be blondes. The swords cards would all be blonde people, and only blonde people would have these attributes. That didn't make sense to me. It also didn't make sense to me that so many of the cards seemed so darn negative, even in upright positions. I didn't like that. And also, personally, I like the yellow. The yellow is not a problem, was not a problem for me. But this deck is a little bit better than my deck. But the line work was so muddy looking. They looked cheap. The cards looked like they were cheaply reproduced on some kind of color Xerox machine, although there were not color Xerox machines at the time, but they looked very cheaply produced. And that and the meanings, they all just made me unhappy with trying to learn this deck. Yeah, they're tougher. So this is a German deck. Now I got this deck by mistake, and I'll go into that story sometime later, another time. Misfortunes in tarot deck purchasing. But so this is a German plaid back deck. This was basically my first introduction to tarot, which is probably most people's first introduction to tarot of my generation. So I got this, I tried reading with it, or I tried studying it and felt very unhappy. And so I went back out. I was still in high school. I went back out and I got this. Now you're saying, what is that? Well, remember, this is back in the early 80s. And in the early 80s, we were told that you had to be gifted a deck. You should keep your deck in a wooden box. So I found this wooden box, and I'm still happy with this wooden box. I love this wooden box. And it needs to be wrapped in silk, and I happened to find this silk scarf-like thing. It's very inexpensive, but it's held up. It's survived wax stains from candles and everything. So I wrapped my deck in this. And let me show you the deck, because this is a deck I still love. Well, you can see it's torn. I still love. I don't read with it very much, but I still love this deck. This is the Soleon Tarot, and it is definitely out of print. It's out of print so much that I don't have the little white book for it. This is what the backs look like. Yeah. For those of you who are concerned about reversals, reading reversals, if you want to shuffle reversals into the deck, you will see which are upside down immediately. But I like this back. I like this back a lot. I like it because I am Leo, and so we have a Leo. I like this because it's an Italian deck, and I identify most with my Italian heritage, though I am not 100% Italian. And I love this deck, but I have a really, really hard time reading with this deck because this deck is super dark. And I'm not saying I need unicorns and rainbows in my decks. I don't particularly like that either. But this is super dark. For example, this is the Ace of Swords. And look at that. We have a beheading for the Ace of Swords. Now here's the Ace of Wands. A little bit better. I mean, there's no blood here, but still, it's a very, very dark art. Yeah, dark arts, not the dark arts, but the imaging, the coloring, the line work, the expressions on the faces are all very dark expressions. Yeah, here we have the Page of Pentacles. So I got this deck. I've worked with this deck. I still use it. I still pull it out and read for myself every so often with this deck when I feel drawn to it, but knowing that this deck is going to be giving me some very, very, I mean, look at this Five of Pentacles. Yeah, not exactly two people wandering outside of a church. We have something entirely different going on here with the money transaction. The Seven of Wands. Now, this is a very somewhat magical deck. I mean, a very Italian magical deck, if you ask, if I were to explain it. Here we have the Six of Cups. A lot of, is it wine? Is it blood? You choose. So this deck has always been challenging for me. Has always been challenging for me. And I pull it out. I use it. I love it. I will never get rid of it. But again, I got this deck. I worked with it. I tried learning it. I've lost the little white book. I'd love to get a new copy of the little white book, but after I got this deck, I put tarot aside. I put tarot aside, and I come back to that deck every so often, but I just put it aside from the time I was in university, mid-university days, to about 2019. Now, that was a long time. We're talking decades in between. I mean, I still have my decks. I still have this one. I think I still have my original deck somewhere, but I just stopped using them. And then come around 2019, I think I really want to develop my intuition more. I want to develop my intuition, and I didn't feel up to challenging myself with the tarot again. So what I did was I went to oracle cards, and I got this deck of oracle cards from Colette Baron Reed, and she made this deck in conjunction with Alberto, excuse me, Violdo and Marcela Lobos. This is the Mystical Shaman Oracle. This is probably my first and favorite oracle deck because this is what the backs look like. I love the backs. I love the artwork. And there are reversals shuffled into this deck. I can read this deck with reversals. I like an oracle deck that you can read with reversals. Or I think it's called medicine, the medicine meaning and the upright meaning. Yeah. So I love the artwork. I love the diversity, the not entirely white Anglo-Saxon style of this deck. Yeah. I love the otherness and still the rootedness and the connection that I feel to these images. I do not have Native American blood, though I was born on the soil of Native Americans. But I still feel a connection to this artwork and the meanings. And I love that this deck was created by both Colette Baron Reed and a Native American shaman. I love that. So I used this to break back into cartomancy. You got this, and then I thought, I love this deck of hers. Let's see what her tarot deck would be like. So I also got her Good Tarot. Her Good Tarot is a nice tarot. I mean, it is a good tarot. It's a gentle tarot. This is the back. The backs, I love the backs of these. I took this on a cruise with me, and people who saw me reading this with these in a lounge all agreed that these were beautiful cards, both this and the Mystical Shaman Oracle. The artwork they thought was beautiful, and I agree. I unfortunately found the artwork in this deck a little bit more difficult to read. It shows up so much better on camera than it does live in person to my eyes, but this is a gentle tarot. However, I don't get the symbols from the tarot that I remember learning with. And the guidebook and these symbols, while I loved it, while I love reading with it, I do a year ahead spread with this deck. It's not easy for me to learn. Yeah, I get 5 of air. And after restudying tarot, I understand that 5 of air, which is 5 of swords, would be, well, battle in other decks. Yeah, we'd have a guy in battle and laying down the swords, and I don't get that from this deck. Yeah, I don't get 8 of Cups. Well, 8 of Cups. Disappointment, wandering off. Well, maybe, I don't know. I just don't know. So I got this and I used it, and after using this for a while, I thought, okay, I've got to go back to the beginning. I got to go back to basics if I really want to get into this again. So I went and I got myself a Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And the Rider-Waite-Smith deck that I got was, I should say this one. Yeah? It was a standard Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and I don't have that one out. It was a standard Rider-Waite-Smith in English. And then I thought, okay, I don't like the coloration. So I got myself one of these, yeah, the Universal Rider-Waite. And the colors are better. I like the colors better on this. I actually got this on a trip to Argentina. And I had hoped to find something more of an Argentinian flavor when I went to a shop with tarot cards and crystals in Buenos Aires. And all that they had were the plaid backs, and they had this, and they had some other very, very standard looking Rider-Waite-Smith decks. And I thought, okay, well, I don't want to spend a lot of money for something that I could get in the United States anyways. But I do want something to remember this trip by. So I got this Universal deck. And the colors are better. Yeah, the colors are, and the line work is clearer in this deck. So I liked it. I liked it much better. I mean, you get some texturing to the sky. You get more texturing to the ground, to the people. There's more texturing to the skin tones, which is nice. I like that. And so I used this, and I used a Marseille deck and a Thoth deck. I'll get to those later to do a deep dive comparing the three systems. I tried doing that, and I thought, no, my mind is not good at comparing things that I don't know very well. Yeah, looking at for example, the King of Wands from three systems. Yeah, the Rider-Waite-Smith King of Wands, the Tarot de Marseille, Roi de Bâton. My French is, I need to see it. And then the Knight of Rods, the Knight of Wands for the Thoth decks. Looking at them together without knowing them deeply, it didn't help me. So I said, okay, I'm going back. I'm just going to focus on Rider-Waite-Smith. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to look at some other kinds of decks. And the next kind of deck that was a revelation to me was the Steampunk Tarot. This is the Steampunk Tarot book by Barbara Moore and illustrated by Abby Fell. And I fell in love with the artwork of this deck. It's Rider-Waite-Smith. I mean, the poses are Rider-Waite-Smith. I might eventually chop the borders off of this someday. The King of Pentacles. Yeah, it's not a Rider-Waite-Smith King of Pentacles, but except for the court cards, 6 of Cups. You got flowers in the cups. The symbols are there. Yeah, young guy giving young gal flowers in cups. Yeah, you've got the 7 of Swords, the 7 of Wands, I'm sorry, 7 wands from below. She's up there with her 1 wand defending. It's all there. It's all in there, but it's different, and it's exciting, and it's modern, and this deck got me really interested again in reading with the tarot and feeling the feels as well as reading the reads, and also with a more modern understanding of the meanings of these cards. Yeah. Also looking after I got this and found the tarot tube on the YouTubes, I started getting more of an understanding of modern interpretations of the cards, that the swords don't need to be blonde people in the court cards. The hair color doesn't matter when we're talking about kinds of people. Skin tone doesn't matter when we're talking about kinds of people. The High Priestess. I mean, here we have the 2 rods. We've got the moon figures. It's different, but it's also still the same. We can still find the same symbols in this deck. So the steampunk got me excited again with reading the tarot, the Emperor. So I went from that to my next revelation, which was exactly this, which was a deck that I decided was my first and perhaps my one and only soul deck. I had other decks in the meantime, but this deck is my soul deck. This is the Spacious Tarot by Carrie Mallon and Annie Reut. And the reason this is my soul deck is because of this card in the first edition, the Three of Pentacles. The Three of Pentacles. This is me. I am slightly dyslexic, yeah? And this card with the A and T reversed is me. I love decks with slight errors in them, and this deck is me. It's also me because it allows you to put yourself in the card. Like, this is the Judgment card. This is the being called forward to a different, more colorful future. You can see yourself in these cards. And also, there are no humans, but look at a salamander for the Child of Wands. In this deck, if you don't know it, the suits are Child, Explorer. Explorer would be the Knight, Guardian, and Elder, I think. Now, let me see. Let me check the book, just because I'm talking out of my you-know-what. So we have the Child, the Explorer, the Guardian, and the Elder. Yes, I was right. See, this is my soul deck. So yeah, look at this. The Devil. The Devil, you can see the material realm, but you can see that you can get past the trees. You can feel trapped or ensnared by this forest of material things, but you can see a way through it. The Five of Wands. Look at that. Competition. You can see the competition in here. The Hermit. You can see the light. You get the balance for the Two of Pentacles. The symbols, the necessary symbols, are all there. I wanted to see if I can find my favorite card, my ride or die card. There it is, the Hanged One. This was my second reason for loving this deck, was this image of the Hanged Man or the Hanged One. Yeah, this turned around perspective, this changed perspective is perfect for this deck, and was perfect for me, and opened up a new way of seeing tarot, of looking for and seeing the symbols, but not needing there to be kings and queens, not needing there to be humans. Opened up an entirely different realm. And then I got my first and favorite Rider-Waite-Smith deck. I've got others now. I've got other renditions of the Rider-Waite, but this borderless Centennial deck made me fall in love with Rider-Waite again. It really did make me fall in love with Rider-Waite again. I love the somewhat aged look and still clean lines of this deck. Now you can see his face. You can see the garments, but there's texture. There's an aged texture to the deck. I love that it's borderless. I love the backs. Now, some people say they like the bordered edition because the backs, they like the color of the backs better. I like these backs. I like that there's a copyright that is almost impossible to see. I love the texturing on this deck. This got me interested in the Rider-Waite-Smith Pixie's art again. And then I got a couple of other editions, which aren't really formative, but this was my formative, getting me back to Pixie again deck. And I love it. Look at that sun. I love the baby on the horse. The baby on the horse makes me happy. It makes me bright and sunny and free and open and carefree. And the banner is waving in the breeze and the horse looks happy. The baby looks happy. The sun looks gentle. The sunflowers are shining brightly on the baby with flowers in the baby's hair. I love it. I love this card. This is the only card one of the only cards in all of Pixie's art that I don't particularly like. I don't like the Justice card. I don't like the Justice card because it feels too cold. It feels too hard. It doesn't look merciful to me. And I want to see mercy in my Justice card. This card does not look merciful. I want to see emotion in my Justice card. Balanced emotion, but emotion. And I don't see any some water would have been nice. I don't know. I love the Hierophant. So, Pixie's art. This is where I fell in love with Pixie's art again, with the borderless Centennial. And then I got a lot of other decks. I collected a lot of other decks, and I started reading with a lot of other decks. And then I decided I'm going to go back and start thinking about Marseille again. Because the first Marseille deck I got was this one. And this is a facsimile. This is a facsimile from the Bibliothèque Française, created by Huron. And I got this because it was available here in Korea. The price was not horrible. There was no additional shipping, there was a little shipping cost, but I got a couple of decks together. So shipping for this deck was like less than $1. So I got it to study. And I got it, and I did not like the size to begin with. I mean, this is standard Rider-Waite-Smith. The cards are too small. I did not like that it was such a small deck. That irritated me from the moment I received it. The backs are fine. I mean, this is not my favorite color scheme, but the backs are fine. But this is what I did not like. I did not like that I could not see these images clearly. The line work in these cards, look at this, the fadedness. I did not like that. Look at how the red comes outside of the lines on this card. I did not like that. Look at this hermit. You can barely see his eyes. Yeah, you could barely see what's up with his clothes here. Look at this. Yeah, look at that. And look at this line work. And look at, this is white. What color is that in the background? I did not like this deck at all. Why are there lines here? Why are there no lines there? I did not like that. I do not like it, Sam I am. So yeah, I did not like this deck. And I couldn't understand this deck. And I was looking at this deck along with, let's see, the Holistic Tarot. No, not the Holistic Tarot. I was reading another book on the Tarot, and I'll put the book's name here in the banner. And I just couldn't get anything from this deck. I didn't understand why people wanted to read with this deck, so I put it aside. I touched it. Look at that. Look at that. It looks messy. It just looked messy to me. So I got this deck. This was before I decided I wanted to go back and learn Marseille. So I got this deck when I got my, around the time I got this deck. Yeah? Around the time I got my Universal Rider-Waite. And I got it, I looked at it, I tried to study it, and I threw it in the back of my closet. Metaphorically. So let me set this aside, because then what I did was I went out and I got the Jodorowsky Tarot de Marseille. Both of these are convert decks. Yeah, I got the Jodorowsky and I got the CBV by Bendov. But the one, I read Bendov's book and I read Jodorowsky, but I used Jodorowsky's deck to really study. And these lines were crisp. These lines were clear. The colors were vivid. The colors were bright. I could see what I was looking at. And even though there were some oddities within the deck, reading their books, I could see kind of what I can do with those oddities. Like, look at this red here and the blue here. Why is that different? Well, I can see meaning in that now. So looking at this deck got me interested in Tarot de Marseille again. Meditating with this deck got me interested in reading Tarot de Marseille. And then after I got into this deck, looking at this deck again, I fell in love with this deck, if that makes any sense. Seeing these fresh, clear lines and studying these fresh, clear lines, and then going back to see this facsimile gave me a whole new impression, a whole new take on this facsimile. And I've fallen in love with this facsimile now. So, it took me falling in love with this to fall in love with this. And now I really enjoy reading with Tarot de Marseille. And I've got a bunch of other Tarot de Marseille decks. I've got the Tarot, the Marshmallow Tarot and the Tarot Serene, the two mini, super mini, and very modern looking Tarot de Marseille decks. So, Tarot de Marseille. I like reading with Tarot de Marseille now. And then I decided, what did I decide? The next step on my journey, we're practically here in 2021. The next step on my tarot journey is coming back to Thoth. Now, let me tell you this. I love these backs. I truly adore these backs. They're not reversible. I mean, I can reverse them. It doesn't bother me that I can see this and this side by side. When I'm shuffling and I'm pulling, this doesn't bother me. But I love the color. I love the colors on the backs, and I love the colors on the fronts too. Now, frankly, I wish I had a greenie. This is not a greenie. This was also the cheapest large deck that I could get here in Korea. And I got this deck, and it's not the best version. I know it's not the best version, but I fell in love with this deck. I fell in love with the colors. I fell in love with my Hanged Man in this deck as well. Look at that snake. Look at the light beaming down. I fell in love with the Thoth deck. I fell in love with it. I meditated with it. I got a couple of books and I read them both. And I still have not read with these cards. I have not read with these cards. I love it. I love it. Crowley doesn't bother me. Yeah, I think was a deliberate bad boy. I think he was trying to do things for shock value. He also studied Eastern traditions. I love Frida's work, Frida Lady Harris's work. I love the color palette, although I would love the color palette even more if this were a greenie, I think. But I haven't gotten the money to get that yet. Someday I think I will. But this deck intimidates me. It doesn't intimidate me because of the creator. It doesn't intimidate me because of the history or the artwork particularly. The depth of this deck, you're right. You're absolutely right. All of you who are saying, but Rider-Waite is deep too. This is a completely deep deck. It has depth of meaning and mystery. You're absolutely right. However, I feel familiar. There is a familiarity. I've had this in my life since I was a late teenager, early adult. This is newer, and I don't know. I just have felt intimidated by this deck. And so I'm going to break my intimidation with this deck starting the next new moon. I've decided I'm going to start reading for myself with this deck. I'm going to do first 1 card pulls for myself and sitting with those, not just meditating and looking at the meetings, but doing an actual pull. And I think that will help break me through my intimidation. I mean, I'm sorry. If you don't like this artwork, I'm very sorry, but I love this artwork. I love that we have the sun here and we have I believe this is the Venus, not Venus, what do you call it? Virgo. I think this is the Virgo symbol. But I need to study that more. Yeah. Here we have Aquarius and the moon. I need to study this more. But I love this deck. I love the color. And I'm going to start learning it. This is my next step on the journey, getting through the Thoth Tarot, so that I will be reading with all three systems, three major systems. Now, the Thoth, the Tarot de Marseille, and Rider-Waite-Smith. I also have a Brotherhood of Light Tarot deck, which will be my fourth system that I will learn. And I've got the Marielle. I'll be learning that too. But so this is my next step on my formation journey. And speaking of formation journeys, as I've done those, I've also been called to work with Lenormand cards. Frankly, I bought Lenormand cards without thinking about it. And here is probably the first deck of Lenormand cards that I purchased. Let me find it. I forgot to pull them out here. Here, the Fairy Tale Lenormand. This is my first deck of Lenormand cards that I got because I saw someone had it on YouTube, and I thought, I'm going to learn Lenormand. And I got it, and I didn't do anything with it. I did not do anything with it. You can see that, well, this deck is in order too, but they're in order, and I haven't worked with this deck yet. I mean, I like the art. I like the art, which is the reason I got the deck, but this is the first time I have opened it since I first opened it when I received it. Because, do you know the Gypsy Witch cards? And I should have brought them in, because the Gypsy Witch cards I got from my grandmother when I was a little tyke. And I suppose that really is my introduction to cartomancy. Those cards are crazy to me. I have not figured out how to read with them comfortably yet. And there are a couple of other cards that I've got that I haven't figured out how to read with them yet. So I would not put them as formative for me, at least at this time. So I got these cards, and they've been sitting, and they've been sitting, and they've been sitting. And then I stumbled upon Truth in Story, Kelly's Truth in Story, and her description of Lenormand cards. And it's that watching her talking about Lenormand, which suddenly made it all click in my head. I suddenly understood what to do with these things. Yeah, a tree is always a tree. And a tree in connection with the fox links up, and they combine to make new meaning. It's not like reading tarot, in which you could see that one card answers this question in a spread. This one card answers this question in a spread. They influence each other, sure, but they can also be read separately. These cards cannot be read separately. A little bit like Tarot de Marseille. Tarot de Marseille also needs to be read together, I believe. And if you believe differently, tell me in the cards below. Tell me in the comments below. But Kelly in Truth in Story got me to understand Lenormand, and I've been studying Lenormand now for several months. And so this is the next stage of my cartomancy journey, is going past Oracle and Lenormand, and Oracle and Tarot into Lenormand. And she also got me interested in Kipper cards, which I haven't started yet. I've ordered them. So she got me interested in Kipper cards as well. And I will be studying those, that being my next leg on my journey for cartomancy, is first Thoth, then Kipper cards. I'll be studying them. I've got a couple of decks on the way as we speak now. Probably this summer I will start cracking them open and studying with them. So I've got other Lenormand decks, but this is the deck that, reading with these, with Kelly's Truth in Story descriptions and understandings, she got me interested in the German school rather than the French school, and her descriptions of layouts. I've come to love Lenormand through her, because of her, and I owe her great thanks for that. So Lenormand was another step in my journey. And in between now and my beginning with Thoth, I have one more thing that is my most recent breakthrough on my cartomancy journey. And do you know these backs? Should I say, do you know these backs? Because this is a deck of, these are two decks combined. This is the Soul Cards deck. This is the Soul Cards deck. And I've had these for 2 years, and I have not opened them because, again, I felt intimidated by them. Why? Well, there's no book. There is no information about the cards. There are no titles. There are no descriptions. It's just the art. And the reason I got this deck was because I wanted to develop my intuition. I wanted to develop my intuitive reading skills. But I haven't gotten up the courage to open this deck, to work with this deck yet. I love this card now. I did a deck interview with the Soul Cards. And this card came up for me as one of the answers to my questions. I believe this is the card for what is the probable, maybe, I think this was the how can we work best together card. In joy, in radiant, in imagination, and joy in imagination. Now, the thing that bothers me, this is my worry, this is my angst, the thing that bothers me still about this deck is I am afraid, because I haven't read with it much, I'm going to start reading with this at the new moon, is because I am afraid, I am nervous that I am going to get, this also came up in my interview, that I'm going to get the same reading over and over and over again. Or the same set of readings over and over again. That my intuition is going to read the same thing into the cards. And so I'm worried about that because I haven't actually started using this deck yet. This combined deck yet. So I'll be starting with this. This is the real next step, or the next leg of my journey, is really, really, really going 100% intuitive with this deck as my main oracle deck. And what I'll do is I'm going to lay out 5 cards with this, from this, and then a bottom row of tarot cards to have a conversation between these cards and either Tarot de Marseille or these cards and my Jonasa Joust deck. We'll see how that works out. I just got a Jonasa Joust deck in the mail, and I did an unwrapping, not an unboxing, but an unwrapping of that deck just a moment ago. So that will be up on YouTube if you want to take a look at that. So I'm going to use these decks together, starting on the new moon in a couple of days. And we'll see how it works. We'll see how I read these. See if I do, as I'm afraid of, continue getting the same message over and over again, which is possible. Maybe my intuition is not as flexible and as open as I hope it will be, but maybe it is. We'll take a look. If you want to look at my journey with this deck, I'll be posting every day on Instagram readings with this deck. So you can check out my Instagram channel as well. It's not a channel, my Instagram. And so, friends, this is where I am on my formation with cartomancy and decks. Yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. What has your journey been like? Do you read cards? Do you read tarot? Do you read Rider-Waite-Smith or in the Rider-Waite-Smith system? Do you read Marseille in that system? Do you read both? Do you read Thoth? Do you read all of them? Are you only an oracle card reader? There are those out there. I'd like to know what you think of them. Look at this card. Look at this art. Oh, let me tell you one thing about how I'm going to use this deck, because you can see that this deck is huge. As some people have called them, it's a chunky monkey because they're two decks combined, and this is already pretty thick cardstock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to overhand shuffle these, and then because you can see my overhand shuffle is not that good, after I've done that a while, it's better off camera. It really is better off camera. My overhand with this deck is better off camera, but still not excellent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count cards. He's counting cards, he's counting cards, I'm counting cards. I'm going to count cards. So what I'll do is I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and pull the 8th card. And then go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and pull that card. Yeah, and do that for 5 cards. Do a 5-card pull that way. So it won't be such a big problem that I cannot shuffle this deck as well as I would like. But so, friends, ending this with these 2 cards, I think, is appropriate. We have this cartomancy, tarot, oracle, all of the systems are an expression of my love, an expression of my intuition, expression of my heart reading and then also speaking. Yeah, the developing wisdom that I'm getting through tarot is helping me to speak it into the world, helping me speak my intuition into the world, from my heart into the world. So that's my tarot journey. What's yours? I'd love to hear. Let me know in the comments below. And friends, now and as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.